Welcome, everyone, to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. We have a lot to discuss today, so thank you so much for joining, to all our viewers and all of our supporters. IDSF in Hebrew name is a Bitchonistim. IDSF is a leading Israeli organization advocating for strong national security to defend Israel. It's a great pleasure today to be joined by Ambassador Eli Yerushalmi. Eli, thank you so much for joining.
Always a pleasure.
You lucked out in terms of which briefing to enter into when we booked this earlier, because obviously there's a lot to talk about in the news cycle with these assassinations and the looming question about what the retaliation of Iran, of Hamas, of Hezbollah will be. So please, Eli, what can you share with us?
Okay, first of all, I'm happy that I didn't, prepare anything yesterday for this meeting because so much has changed, and even as we speak, nobody knows exactly what's happening. Only a few minutes ago, they found the body of Fuad Shukr, who was the commander-in-chief of the Hezbollah military. So things are ongoing. And of course, in Israel, there's a huge expectation for some kind of retaliation. So far, we think that they're probably checking out themselves or thinking what exactly to do after such a blow that they received in the last few hours. The first blow, of course, was yesterday in Beirut with the commander-in-chief of Hezbollah. This is a very important event because this person was the number 2 in the Hezbollah, and he's the top advisor for Nasrallah. So this has significant importance dealing with Lebanon, and of course the head of the Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh. That of course is a major blow to Hamas and what it represents. We all remember the pictures on TV from the 7th of October. With Haniyeh praying after the beginning of the attack on Israel. So with him, we actually closed circuit, as we say in Israel. And that, of course, is a major blow to Hamas. And of course, part of this blow is that the head of Hezbollah, the number 2 of Hezbollah, was hit in Beirut, the capital of Lebanon. Ismail Haniyeh was killed in Tehran, the capital of Iran. So this basically proves to the Arab world and to Iran that Israel can hit wherever it wants. And this puts us again, after so many months, on the offensive. We're on the offensive. The Arab world is shocked. Iran is shocked. No doubt that Israel's deterrence has returned in a way. So you can see in Israel today, after many months of a kind of despair, you can see people smiling. And even if there will be a retaliation, and even if this causes to a full-scale war, no doubt that Israel has put itself back into the game, and we did it big. The attacks on Lebanon and Iran come after the Israeli Air Force attack on Hodeidah in Yemen. You know that a lot of air forces are attacking the port of Hodeidah in Yemen, but Israel did it really with style. Not only that the fires from the port and the oil refineries are still continuing, but the Israeli Air Force on purpose flew low over the city. The people actually saw the planes with the Star of David. This was a major attack by Israel to prove that here we are and beware concerning the Yemenites. And the Yemenites is the power to reckon with, meaning they have a lot of modern missiles and so on. They hit Tel Aviv. So again, we have to take them seriously, but no doubt that this attack had a major effect. Israel is also on the diplomatic offensive. We saw the Prime Minister Netanyahu speaking to Congress, which was an excellent speech, to my opinion, in which he spoke not only about Israel's basic position, but what is going on in terms of the world and in the struggle of the Western world and the Western civilization against the barbarians that we're fighting against. If we take this war and kind of, put it into perspective, we'll talk about a few things. One is Iran. Iran is the major enemy. Iran is the country that actually is attacking Israel through its proxies and so on. The war is with Iran. They planned the whole thing with Hamas, with Hezbollah, with the Houthis, with their Iraqis friends, and so on. And therefore, the war is with them. And we might see again, as we saw on the 14th of April, when they attacked us with missiles and rockets and so on, we might see again some sort of Iranian attack directly on Israel. And we have to remember that Iran is trying to build a nuclear force and a bomb. And this, we have to remember that this is in the background of all this event. While all this struggling is going on, they are moving forward with their plans, and Israel will do everything in its power, and I hope also the West, to deter and to attack Iran in order for it not to have nuclear weapons. The second part is Lebanon. In Lebanon, the war is affecting us tremendously because we have been bombed for the last few months. The Galilee is burning. I met friends who visited the Galilee. The Galilee looks terrible, burned, scorched. It's the most beautiful area, to my opinion, in Israel. It's simply heartbreaking. And of course, the major issue is the return of tens of thousands of people who lived along the border back to their homes along the frontier. So all this has to be done, whether politically or by force. And it seems that it will probably be, unfortunately, by force. In Gaza, in the south, Hamas, we have to finish our military operations vis-a-vis the Hamas, although now it's very, very low key. The main issues, of course, is what we call the deal to get the hostages back. I think that now that Sinwar is kind of left alone in Gaza without, the support of Hania and his friends, outside Gaza, we might see some kind of maybe agreement or something, but we don't know. These guys, they don't talk Western like we do. So we have the issue of hostages. We have the issue with Philadelphia. Philadelphia is that line between Gaza and between Egypt and Gaza. Israel has to stay in Philadelphia. There are all kinds of talks about electronic tracking devices along the border between Egypt and Hamas. We also saw in Israel what these tracking devices are worth during the attack of the Hamas on the 7th of October, when millions of dollars that were spent into this electronic defense simply collapsed within minutes. So the Israeli public is not buying this kind of arrangement, and Israel has to be on the line. And of course, in the north, we must not allow the Gazans and Hamas to return back to northern Gaza, the areas closer to Sderot, closer to Ashkelon, and so forth. And we need to be along what we call the Netzarim corridor that kind of slices the Gaza into two. And of course, I spoke about the proxies. We have to remember that they are there, especially in Iraq and Syria, and they're also participating in this war. If we look a little outside the world, the United States supported us last night on the issue of Hezbollah because Shuker, the commander that was killed, was actually responsible for attacking the Marines years back and causing over 200 fatalities amongst United States Marines. And this is why he was a murderer, also according to the Americans, and therefore the Americans actually responded very favorably. Concerning Hania, that's a different story. What we see right now is that the Americans are saying, we didn't know anything about the attack on Hania. It wasn't us. We didn't know. And the Iranians, from their point of view, are blaming the Americans. They're saying the Americans did it and they will retaliate. So this is going to be a very interesting situation vis-a-vis the United States and Iran and of course Israel. And of course, looking at the United States, we're all looking, of course, at the upcoming elections. And I assume that you probably are guessing, who most Israelis are in favor of in these upcoming elections. Looking at England, France, the left wing won over there, which basically means that the Islamists won. Britain is planning on cutting all military aid to Israel. It doesn't look good from that European perspective. On the other hand, the European Union is becoming more right-wing. So it's a very interesting situation in Europe. Russia and China are standing firmly in favor of Hamas, of the Iranians. The way that they are talking has become much more anti-Israel, especially in recent days. Another country which is interesting to follow is Turkey. The president of Turkey, Erdogan, is actually threatening to bring in Turkish forces against Israel if Israel attacks Lebanon. I gotta tell you, wow, this is something beyond belief. I don't think it'll come to that. Turkey is a NATO power and so on. But with Erdogan, you never know. The guy is completely an Islamic, radical, crazy. So you never know what he can do. And of course, last but not least, I have to, of course, talk about the internal issue in Israel that you probably heard about, this whole business of the soldiers that were arrested by military police and so on, and blamed for attacking physically, sexually, Nukhba terrorists. This is something that most Israelis find almost unbelievable to deal with this kind of thing at this point. Therefore, there were demonstrations against this and so on. The important thing is that there will be no anarchy in all this. We have to settle our problems, not like we did in the last year and a half or two, when everything was pretty much on the streets. That's not the way to go, especially when most of us think that we're in for a major war, probably with Hezbollah, Iran, and all its proxies. So thank you very much for that, and I'm open for your questions.
Eli, thank you for that very thorough review of everything that is happening. And there is absolutely a lot happening. Over the past day, I've received hundreds of emails and questions. So we obviously can't get to all of them. But I have a couple important things I want to ask you that really speak to your expertise as an ambassador, as understanding the political system in the world, because Haniyeh was the political leader of Hamas. He wasn't necessarily a guy on the ground with fighting in the trenches. He was a political leader. And there are people who are suggesting that he was a moderate force within Hamas, and therefore killing him was a mistake. How would you respond to that?
My response to that is that Haniyeh, and there are a lot of people in Israel that knew Haniyeh because he used to work in Ashkelon and other places in Israel in construction. So a lot of people know him. The person is an extreme radical. It's unclear whether he was the radical amongst Hamas or Sinwar or Def that was killed, of course, a few weeks ago. The guy is a radical, and talking about talking about Gaza in general. We're always talking about the humanitarian situation and the uninvolved and so on. Everybody was involved in the attack on the 7th of October, from age almost, from kids to older people, and of course the Hamas people. So looking at people who are moderate, less moderate is pretty much nonsense. I mean, these guys are extremists. All of them want to destroy the state of Israel, and we have to fight against all of them. Therefore, Haniyeh is no different than anybody else.
Thank you so much. Now, the assassination, again, Israel hasn't taken credit for it, but the assassination was on a Hamas leader, but he was located in Iran. So how does that play out in terms of Hamas's need to respond and whether they have responded? And it's interesting, I don't know if much rockets have come out of Gaza today, and the extent to which Iran feels the need to respond. How does that work?
Well, they're all saying, of course, both Hamas and Iran, that they will respond. Iran is hit and hurt in a way that they know that any of their leaders can be assassinated in the way that that Hania was assassinated in Tehran, and this is right in the center of the city. Meaning, even now they're not telling exactly the place where Hania was, but according to the rumors, he was actually placed in one of the compounds of the Islamic Guard. So that means that nobody's safe in Iran. And of course, in Persian and Arab tradition, they have to protect their guests. So their guests are more important than themselves. And being hit in a way that they couldn't protect, such an important guest like Hania, that puts them in a very, very difficult spot, and they have to respond, but they still don't know how. And from Hezbollah, we almost didn't hear anything, meaning there's been today the regular shooting, not too much. From Hamas, nothing, meaning no rockets have been fired today at Israel. So I think they're still kind of, looking, where they are. They had this was a tremendous blow for them, and they're looking for a way to respond. And don't forget that they know that any response from them will bring an Israeli response, which will be fierce and heavy, and therefore they know that they'll have to pay the price for this kind of thing.
Now, in yesterday's briefing, I had the great opportunity to speak with Major General Gershon HaKohen, and he wanted to argue that Israel needs a response to what happened up in the north that creates shock and awe in the Arab world. He said that we can't just have a measured response, very calculated, but because of that rocket fire from Hezbollah that killed 12 children in Israel, Israel needs to create shock and awe. So my question to you, Ambassador, is, did this create shock and awe, or is there still more in the arsenal, so to speak, of Israel to really create deterrence and push back against Hezbollah and Iran?
There's much, much more than that. Meaning, a lot of Israelis, especially in the first hour or two, were disappointed that that's all our response. Actually, I think it was very, very measured. I think it put the Hezbollah on the spot. They don't know what to do, and the Iranians don't know what to do, and now the Hamas don't know what to do. We'll see, how they respond. Israel has in its arsenal. Yesterday, I heard a major general in the Air Force that Israel used about 1% of Israel's Air Force capability. So you can imagine what Israel has. I think it's no secret, and we already knew this when I was still working in the foreign ministry and so on, that the response on Lebanon, if things go to worse, and if let's say they start firing rockets at Tel Aviv and so on, Lebanon will not exist as a country after this kind of war. So the Lebanese know that. This is why a lot of them don't want the Hezbollah, in their midst. But Hezbollah are very powerful. Nasrallah knows this very well. I think he's scared, and that's why so far he's playing the game. But now he knows that Israel has reached, what's called its red lines, and now the game is going to be different. It might push him to a kind of arrangement in which he will agree to a retreat and so on to the line of the Litani and the Litani River, and reach some kind of political arrangement. Knowing Nasrallah, knowing the Iranians, I don't think that's where they're going. But we'll have to wait and see. This thing is, it's far from over. And actually, if you ask me as a kind of, amateur historian, I think we're, we didn't even reach, what Churchill said in World War II, after the victory on the Battle of Britain, that this is the end of the beginning. I don't even think we reached the point of the end of the beginning. I think we're in the real beginning of all this story.
Wow. So, okay, in terms of that end of the beginning or the beginning, right now, it's life as usual in Israel today. There were two massive blows to Hezbollah and Hamas, and there isn't this sense of panic on the streets in Israel that everyone is kind of waiting for that response. I'm curious what you think the timeline is in terms of a response? You're not a prophet, but in terms of response from Hezbollah or Iran, is there a ticking time clock that they need in order to maintain their reputation?
I assume they'll have to do something. I don't envy them, and I don't want even to envy them. They're on the spot. Israelis think that probably something will happen, but we're willing to pay the price. We feel that for maybe the first time in months that we're going to be. I'm not saying that we're going to be victorious, but Israel is going to come out strong out of this thing, even though we will probably pay heavy prices and so on. But life in Israel, life is stronger than anything else. It's life. Today I was most of the day outside. Life is completely normal. I mean, nobody's fearing, nobody's nothing. So people are talking, but that's pretty much where it ends. We all know the worst case scenario, that we might have to go into shelters and maybe the electricity is going to be hit and so on. But I think the vast majority of Israelis are strong and are willing to pay a price for this to go on this way, because we feel that finally we have the initiative again.
For sure. And looking at Hezbollah and kind of a more long-term solution with them, being a diplomat yourself, I'm curious to know, to what extent is it within the realm of possibility to strike a deal, to reach an agreement with Hezbollah without a war? Or is war, I mean, we're already in war, but is a tremendous escalation necessary? And then only then can discussions about a deal be reached with Hezbollah?
Maybe there is a possibility. It all depends, by the way, on Nasrallah. Not Nasrallah. It depends on Khamenei and the Iranian regime. What exactly they plan, and how far they will go with Hezbollah. If you ask me, Nasrallah is pretty rational. I mean, the game he's playing with us right now after 10 months has its limits. Everybody knows the rules. He's hitting mostly military positions and not civilian, meaning he's very, very careful. He learned his lesson in 2006 when he kidnapped the soldiers, and he didn't believe that this will be the Israeli response. He knows that Israel can sometimes go crazy, and he's fearful of that. So if you ask me, Nasrallah might want to reach some kind of deal with Israel, and even withdraw from the Litani and to the Litani, and kind of tell his people a story that they're still there and so on. But we reached an arrangement. We had to reach an arrangement. I don't know what. But in the current situation, with Iran in the background, with Gaza in the background, and with what's going on, I simply, like most Israelis, don't see it happening. I see a military clash here in the future, maybe in the very near future. So we really have to wait and see.
Sure. And again, thank you to all of the viewers who are sending in questions in the chat or to my email. If we don't get to your question today, stick around tomorrow and next week. Ambassador, let me ask another question with regards to the hostages in Gaza. With these increasing assassinations and killings of top Hamas leaders, is that decreasing the chances of reaching the hostages, or does that increase Israel's chance of reaching the hostages?
Hamas is not interested in reaching a deal at all. I mean, all these, speculations in Israel, if we give this, if we give that, they're not interested in all that. The only thing that they're interested in is that Israel will surrender, meaning that Israel will give up the Gaza, and then maybe we'll see some of the hostages, not all of them. We're talking about part of them and so on. I don't think they have any intent. I think the only way to go here is militarily. I think that Sinwar now is under a lot of pressure because he lost Hania, he lost Def. I don't know who exactly he's consulting with right now. Maybe his brother. But he's in a bad situation. He probably understands that we were close to him, and he might give in something, meaning that, but what you hear in the media about the deal, the way the Americans look at the deal and so on, it's a bunch of fake news. Meaning the fact that Prime Minister Netanyahu is standing strong and not willing to give in on anything concerning Philadelphia and Netzarim and whatever we have in Gaza. Israel is not going to surrender for sure, and Israel is not going to back its forces out of Gaza. That's not going to happen, and this is the only way eventually, if we can get the hostages, to get them back home alive.
Final question, because we're right about out of time, so we need a quick answer to this one. Hezbollah has stated that they entered this war as a allegiance, as standing with their Hamas brothers. So when the war with Hamas ends, however that would happen, do you think Hezbollah will just pack up shop and go home? Is it really true that their only interests are standing with Hamas?
No. Their interest, basically, they already succeeded with their goal, at least for the midterm war. Meaning they got tens of thousands of Israelis out of their homes, and they actually have a security zone inside Israel. Which you think about it, it's unbelievable. We always had, security zones in Lebanon. Now they have it in Israel. They're not going to give that up. We can't go back to the situation without the people coming back to Metula. I said always, an Israeli victory is when the people of Metula come back to their homes safely, and without that, it's not going to end with the Hezbollah. We'll have to push the Hezbollah back and let the people in Metula and all the places along the Israeli-Lebanon border to go back to their homes.
Ambassador Eli Yerushalmi, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and expertise. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into this briefing. We will be back with you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. here in Israel. Until then, stay safe, stay strong. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye. Shalom.